wonder if you could mention anything the United States has done in Iraq that is remotely as criminal, as sadistic and as violent as the blowing up of the Mosque of the Golden Dome in Samarra. Well, I also don't think that the motion, if that's what it is, chosen for this evening, is a particularly good one. But I knew about it as long as Professor Ramadan did, and I did at least agree to speak to it, in spite of that reservation. And I make this not just as a point of self-pity, but because, for example, someone in this great city who's become used to making nice these days, Imam Rauf, who describes himself as both founder and visionary of whatever the downtown establishment is now to be called, wrote an article, I'm pretty sure it was on the eve of Yom Kippur, for the New York Times, in which he said, when you think about it, this is one of the most hand-washing statements I've yet heard him make in the Make Nice department. When you think about it, our word, Islam, is almost exact translation of your word, shalom. I didn't say it. I've never heard anyone else say it. It isn't true, among other things. Islam may have some relationship to the word salam, which can have some relationship to the word prostration or religious observance. It may, but we know what Islam means, is intended to mean, and does mean, is surrender to God. Acceptance of God's surrender, sometimes translated as submission, but in any case, the resignation to the divine will. Again, not, in my opinion, a prescription for peace, but that isn't my only objection to it. I don't think that abjection or fatalism or the prostration before a divine, or let alone before holy men who are interpreting the book, is a recipe for good health of any kind, mental or physical, since we're talking about the Greek concept of the body and of the spirit and of virtue. Just to get that out of the way. Now, you're right. I was surprised to find myself saying, Professor, when you say that the problem is not the book, but the reader. In the case of the Quran, that is certainly true of me. It's true probably of every book I've ever read, that there are difficulties I have with it or capacities I don't have with which to approach it or understand it. But if I'm reading the Quran, I certainly say, well, I can't tell whether this book is the Word of God or not. I can only doubt that there is such a thing. But I can hope that this was a bad day for God. Can't I? And I can hope to live in a country where I can say that and get applause. Yes, and even mirth. And don't think that it isn't a precious thing, and don't think it's being compromised. I'm coming to that. I don't like the idea of a paradise reward for martyrs. Don't like it. It's not me somehow. Don't like the account. Don't like the early accounts of village squabbles with the local Jews who've taken a look at the new claimant to be the Messiah and decided about him what they decided about the previous claimant. He's no good. He's not up to snuff. Do you think the Jews are ever going to be forgiven for that, by the way? For rejecting 2 in a row? I don't think so. And I don't see why they should hope for forgiveness either. And still I'm allowed to stand here and say this, and there are many parts of Europe I couldn't do that anymore, or I'd have to be very careful in who I'd invited for the audience. I couldn't do it easily on the air, couldn't do it easily in print, couldn't do it easily in public, couldn't do it on certain campuses, couldn't do it with certain publishing houses. Now, all of this has been done to us by the wrong Muslims. Well, let's get together then, isolate who these wrong Muslims are, who've imposed a culture of violence-backed censorship upon us, and let's get rid of them and have an honest discussion about the text and the reader. And I think the ball is in your court, Professor, on that. Just to stay with my own profession, the thing I know best. Not one major media outlet, print or broadcast, has yet shown you what the Danish cartoons actually look like. Yale University Press, which commissioned a book on them which was to include the cartoons, as how could it not, eventually panicked. Yale University Press panicked and published the book without the cartoons over the objections of its author. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. The President of the United States and the head of the Joint Chiefs a few days ago were so pulverized with fear that they had to address personally in pleading tones a Christian nutbag in Florida who might have been or might not have been about to commit a minor act of blasphemy. Is this the culture that Islam wants us to have in relation to it? One of, if you like, preemptive submission, preemptive cowering, backed by the fear of force? Because that is not multiculturalism. That's nothing like the gorgeous mosaic. That's actually the absolute negation of what a multicultural system would be like. And a multicultural system has to look rather askance, I think, on a religion whose preachers and websites openly make threats against people like myself, against the Jewish people, against the Hindus, who, for heaven's sake, aren't even monotheists, can be killed on almost any pretext, against, and a very important point, and I have to make it, and against the wrong kind of Muslim. Now, Professor, I'll say this as mildly as I can, you may not be aware that you were, and I don't want to increase the area of unexpected offense-taking that's been so hugely broadened by the sensitivities of a religion that has the answer to everything. But I'll just say I don't greatly care to be told, as if I didn't know, that an Iraqi life is as precious as an American one. And as someone who's visited Iraq quite a lot, had the occasion to think about it a good deal, I wonder if you could mention anything the United States has done in Iraq that is remotely as criminal, as sadistic, and as violent as the blowing up of the Mosque of the Golden Dome in Samarra. One of the holiest sites in the Muslim world, callously blown up by Sunni forces in alliance with forces who, perhaps I'd agree with them for once on this, were fascistic Baathists. Probably they got the weapons and the high explosive from them. That makes it worse, surely. Intending to start, and successfully, in fact, initiating a civil war in which countless thousands of people have been killed, religious processions have been fired upon, funerals have been fired upon, Qurans, without number, of course, been incinerated, much more importantly, children, old people, and civilians. Now, I just wonder, you must be able to quote it to me. Where is the Sunni fatwa against this conduct? Where is it? Where is the authoritative statement of moral outrage in the Sunni world saying this is not acceptable behavior for followers of the Prophet? I missed it. And so apparently did the followers of the Prophet miss it, because they keep on doing this all the time. They were doing it before the United States got to Iraq, and they'll be doing it after we've gone. So I'm sorry I won't be talked to in that tone of voice. And I want to know, I repeat my question, who has the authority to issue fatwas? Is it Sheikh Qaradawi, who you sometimes very much expressed respect for, who on Al Jazeera gives advice on all kinds of things, some of them innocuous, sexual matters and so forth, doctrinal rulings, sometimes upon the legitimacy or otherwise of suicide bombing, if directed at Israelis, not just Jews, of course, but no, we draw the distinction. On the other hand, Hamas, which does the suicide bombing, doesn't draw the distinction. If I can't issue a fatwa against Hamas, if I'm a Muslim, if there's no one who will and they won't, surely someone could say, we don't think Hamas should have on its website and manifesto the reproduction of the protocols of the elders of Zion, a Christian fascist fabrication that is one of the warrants for the Nazi exterminationist solution. I mean, surely that's a question for the UN Anti-Racism Committee on a spare day. Or since that spare day never seems to come, for some Muslim authority to say, no, brothers, don't do that. It doesn't come. It doesn't happen. Look on the website, it's still there. Now, you would do better, I think, Professor, if you identified yourself as a member of a very small and critical and endangered minority. Someone who really is against all this and will say so, and will also decry the fact that the religion itself can't seem to throw it off. But you seem to have that a little bit both ways. Now,
I'm going to have to
very well.
stop you so we can get to
Yes,
the
so then my closing statement is this. If you want diversity as much as the professor does, as much as I'm sure many people here do, religious diversity, cultural diversity, what you need for it is this. You need a secular state with a godless constitution like this one.
Listen to what's being said about the core idea. Islam means submission. That's not the same as peace. It means surrender to authority, to a divine command that people are expected to follow without question. That becomes a real-world problem when criticism is punished. Look at the Danish cartoons. Major publishers refuse to show them out of fear. Yale University Press removed them from a book about the controversy. That's documented. Fear shaped what people were allowed to see. Violence tied to religious identity is also real. In Iraq, sectarian attacks killed thousands, bombings of mosques, funerals, civilians. These weren't rare events. They were ongoing. And clear, unified condemnation from religious authorities was inconsistent or absent in many cases. This isn't about one group. Christianity has its own history of violence, crusades, inquisitions, suppression of dissent. The pattern is similar. When belief is treated as absolute truth, questioning it becomes dangerous.
To speak as you did of the Ottoman Empire as a place where there were not just Muslims, but Christians and Jews is either not to know yourself or to expect others to have forgotten or not to know what it meant to be a non-Muslim under the Caliphate or under any similar theocratic Muslim authority to this day. No, what we need, secularism is the only guarantee of religious freedom, and yours and that of every other Muslim we will defend. But you won't be surprised that we have some questions for you in the meanwhile. Thank you.
Okay. You laughed a lot, make laugh the people. And I have a problem with, we are talking about people who are being killed, talking about people about wars, that's fine. I have a problem with the way you are putting things here. First, you know, when you said the first remark, say, okay, you know what, total, these are the first letters of totalitarianism, because Islam is a comprehensive religion, by the way, exactly like Judaism and Christianity. I never met a rabbi, a Christian, telling me you are with God on Saturday and with the devil on Monday, or what is that? But in Islam, it's as if it's all together. It's a very simplistic way of dealing with Islam. It's a comprehensive religion, but there are rights of God and rights of people, and you have to differentiate, and it's very old. Come back to Alain de Libera, the French philosopher, telling you, you know what, separating authority between what is to God and what is to human being, it's coming from Islam. And this was taught and translated into Christianity in the Middle Ages, exactly the opposite of what we think. You may disagree, but at least acknowledge the fact that there are many interpretations in history that say Islam is this totalitarian. What's that? Auto, these are the first letters of autocratic. It's not an argument. It's not serious. And as I said, yes, we are talking about reading. And by the way, it's for all the texts. It's the same for the Marxists. You know quite well about the Marxist tradition. And you know what some Marxists did with the text? It means that everything that Marx wrote was bad? No. Once again, it's a serious matter here. When we are talking about interpretations, I mean it. I mean that, yes, there are people using the text in a way which is not, and you have historically to acknowledge the fact that you yourself might have read some of the text, not in the good way. So this is the second point. About now the cartoons and some of the things that you were referring to. You know, look at the Muslim majority countries and look at the Muslims and the Western Muslims. And if you look at the reaction of the Muslims living in the States or living in Europe, you cannot just say Islam was one that all the Muslims are reacting the same way. By the way, the very month of October when the whole story started, I was in Copenhagen and I said to the Muslims, take a critical distance and don't be involved in this. You don't like it, but let it be, because this is freedom. The point is that you are not making because you are reducing something which is, oh, the cartoon was all about freedom of expression. You don't speak about the instrumentalization by politicians and governments in Muslim majority countries and even in the West about the whole story, because this is too complex to be put in. So many authorities, many scholars, and then you come with who are the Muslims who are able to speak. If you read some of the things that I'm doing or writing, you would say that, yes, I acknowledge the fact that there is a crisis of authority in Islam. But please, don't tell me today that you didn't hear the Muslim voices around the world criticizing and saying this is unacceptable to kill the people in the streets in New York, and the condemnation was widespread by the scholars. If you don't hear, of course, there's, not less than 12 councils of Muslim scholars around the world, from Amman to Istanbul to Paris, Dublin, were condemning this. It's as if they don't speak. Because at the end, when the people are calling to kill for killing, they are heard. But when people are condemning what is done in the name of the religion, it's as if they don't speak. It doesn't make the headlines. But I'm telling you that some scholars did it and said it, and I was one of them. And you know what is very interesting in the whole discussion? That when the people like what I'm saying, say, you know what he's saying is good, but he's alone. Minority, it's open, but he's alone. But when the people don't like what I say, you know why? He has huge followers. So depending on if you like or not what is said, you have followers or not. So I can tell you something, that the mainstream Muslim presence in the West, in many Muslim majority countries as well, acknowledge the fact that they are critical towards the use of the religion. Now, many Muslims, yes, would support, and I did this, and by the way, I was banned from this country mainly for that, are saying, for example, that the Palestinian resistance is legitimate. And I said that, and I repeat this here. But I also said that the means used to kill innocent civilians and innocent Jews and Israeli in Israel, I cannot accept that. Have you heard that? I said it. So,
in Islam, the concept of submission is central. In Christianity, it's the same structure, obedience to divine authority. That creates a system where questioning is discouraged and authority is protected. Now look at history. Under Islamic rule, non-Muslims lived under the dhimmi system. They paid special taxes like jizya and had fewer rights. That's documented. Not equal freedom. Christianity follows the same pattern. For centuries, it controlled law, punished dissent, and enforced belief. The Inquisition, heresy laws, executions, these are historical facts. Then the argument shifts to bad interpretation. That doesn't hold up when the same patterns repeat across time and cultures. Different people, same outcomes. Control, restriction, punishment for disagreement.
and I am not alone. I'm not alone. So once again, it's many interpretations. Listen to this and also be respectful of this diversity and the way the Muslims are dealing with this. So the fatwa, the legal opinions, are coming from everywhere when you speak about some of the issues, because you know it's sensitive, so you put it in a very simplistic way. Women, violence, Hamas, and all this together, it gives the impression, oh yes, this is right. but you don't give the people all the interpretation, everything which is done in every one of these fields coming from the Islamic tradition and scholars of today, trying to improve the status of women, trying to condemn violence and to promote justice and peace. You also have to deal with this. At the end, you may have a problem with religion much more than with Islam. And to tell me at the end of your speech, the only right solution is a secular, godless constitution in the United States of America, I think is problematic. Because I don't think it's a godless nation here. There is a reference. So, no.
Only the Constitution.
No, only the Constitution. No, but I don't think that even the politician and even the president of the United States of America is referring to something which is a godless secular system. Or I don't understand all the speeches I listen to. But the point is that my way of dealing with the secular or separating authority, I don't have a problem with separating authorities. I don't have a problem with this. And it's even my solution in Israel and with Palestinians. I want one state where the people can live together under the same rule of law. But it's as if we agree on this in France, but not really in Israel, because it wouldn't be Israel. So it's a selective, not consistent approach. I want you to say this everywhere in that way, and then you are saying it, but I would say that the people who are uploading sometimes, they want this for some and not for all. So let me tell you something. I'm critical from within, and I think that I'm far from being the only one. And from within the Islamic tradition, listen to also, for example, the Western Muslims, who the way they were dealing with the September 11th, the way they were dealing with the cartoon crisis, the way they were dealing with fitna. Many of them were saying, no, don't be involved. In the United States of America, how the Muslims reacted to all this controversy on the mosque here in New York, or in burning the Quran Day. Listen, were they all violent? Or have you heard some voices of reason and peace in this country? I think if you are honest, you heard these voices of peace, of people referring to their religion and saying, we are Americans and what we want for this country is a peaceful, proactive existence and coexistence. I think that this is also coming from their ethics, their values, and you have to value this as being the future. So to dream of something which is a godless future, I think it's a wrong dream. But to be able to deal with all this diversity and to listen to the voices, instead of rejecting an entity as something which is bad per se, let us look at the people who from within are trying to do good with what they are and what they believe in. I think that this is the way forward for all of us, and this is the way I would put it for the future. And I'm not talking about wrong Muslims. I'm talking about a critical debate among Muslims, and I hope that you yourself, with the people who are supporting some of the views, you are also critical about the way you sometimes reduce the other to an alien presence, not helping us to get to a better understanding, a critical debate. Sometimes I'm just lost with the way you put things, because the debate is closed before it started. Thank you.
They keep saying, there are many interpretations. That sounds good until you ask a simple question. Who decides which interpretation is right? In Islam, fatwas come from different scholars with no single authority. That creates contradiction. One group condemns violence, another justifies it using the same text. Both claim to follow the same book. That's the problem with religion itself. It's not based on evidence, it's based on belief. Two people can read the same verse and come to opposite conclusions, and there's no objective way to prove who is correct. Now compare that to science. If two people disagree, they test it. They use data, experiments, repeatable results. That's how truth is established. Religion doesn't work that way. It relies on authority, tradition, and emotion. And Christianity operates the same structure. Thousands of denominations, all claiming truth, all disagreeing. When truth depends on interpretation instead of evidence, confusion isn't an accident. It's built into the system. After hearing all of this, do you think religion brings clarity or confusion? I want to hear your take. Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is part 2 of the debate, so if you want the full picture, make sure you watch the rest. And don't forget to like and subscribe.